I watched Hamilton for the first time a few days ago, and there's one line in the whole thing that I think perfectly sums up what conservatives need to start thinking. And that is when Alexander Hamilton is talking to Burr. Burr's saying, hey, no, we need to not be involved in something. He says, Burr, I'd rather be divisive than indecisive. Now let's be very clear about one thing. Divisiveness, for its own sake, is a tool of Satan, and he uses it to try to tear people apart. He lifts up people in their own pride, and then they start to look down on others, they divide themselves, and then they quarrel, and things do not go well. However, Christ also divides people. As stated in the book of Matthew, chapter 25. When the Son of Man shall come in his glory, and all the holy angels with him, then shall he sit upon the throne of his glory, and before him shall be gathered all nations. And I'm going to come back to the nations part. And he shall separate them one from another, as a shepherd divideth his sheep from the goats. And he shall set the sheep on his right hand, but the goats on his left. See, he's dividing us according to our deeds. Then shall the king say unto them on his right hand, Come, ye blessed of my Father, inherit the kingdom prepared for you from the foundation of the world. Then shall he say also unto them on the left hand, Depart from me, ye cursed, not crushed, into everlasting fire, prepared for the devil and his angels. So, clearly, dividing things is not bad. And indeed, in other verses, we're told to judge righteous judgments. And you can only judge righteous judgments if you're being divisive, if you're being discriminating against things that are evil. So, there are things that are not intrinsically evil, and it is wrong to discriminate against those things, per se. But you can divide against things that are evil versus good, and that's just fine. That's what God does, and that's what he expects us to do, and that's how we're supposed to earn our place at his right hand as one of his followers. Of course, as mortals, we are not in a position to judge people in their entirety. We can judge their actions, and we can determine for ourselves whether or not those things are good or evil. But it's not up to us to condemn people. That is God's job. As we learn in 1 Nephi 15, the justice of God did also divide the wicked from the righteous, and the brightness thereof was like unto the brightness of a flaming fire, which ascendeth up unto God forever and ever. So God's justice is what will determine who is burned and who is saved. And that's not up to us to decide, but what we can do is warn our neighbors and say, hey, you really should not be engaging in these actions because those are evil. God will condemn you for those, but as much as I can, I'm still going to love you, and because of that love, I'm going to warn you, stop doing that bad thing. Like, for example, homosexuality used to be, everybody understood, that's wrong, don't do that, that's no good. And it seems like in modern times, even people within the church are starting to say, no, it's okay, it's just part of nature, and it's totally normal. But as followers of God, we need to stand up and say, no, that's wrong. You should not be engaged in those types of activities. Now, if you're feeling things that, you're feeling a temptation to sin, that's not the same as committing a sin. And so if you're feeling attraction to a person of the same gender, that's fine, just don't do anything about it. You know, it's the same as me being tempted to go steal a car. As long as I don't do anything about it, it doesn't matter. Oof. Helaman, chapter 3. Yea, we see that whosoever will may lay hold upon the word of God, which is quick and powerful, which shall divide asunder all the cunning and the snares and the wiles of the devil, and lead the man of Christ in a straight and narrow course across that everlasting gulf of misery, which is prepared to engulf the wicked, and land their souls, yea, their immortal souls, at the right hand of God in the kingdom of heaven. This verse is just reiterating, God will divide us according to our deeds, and those who follow God will be able to, He will lead the man of Christ in a straight and narrow course across that everlasting gulf of misery which is prepared to engulf the wicked. That is the promise given to us. If we will obey God and be righteous, then we'll be led through this terrible, awful world, and we'll be able to be with God again. And our goal should be to help others also reach that destination. So that's a big part of why I'm actually making these videos. Not that anybody's watching them, but who cares? Okay, and here at the end I'm gonna interject some kind of speculation a little bit. In Matthew, it says that God will gathered all nations, and he shall separate them one from another. So I think you could interpret that to mean that some countries are literally better than others. And I think that in the political realm today, there's a lot of people who kind of reject that idea. When Trump says, "Make America great again," they're like, "America was never great." And they're like, "No, America is not exceptional." I think that this is a chosen land. I think that the scriptures are very clear in that regard. And I think that each individual will be judged according to their works. But I think that nations are also judged, as it says there in Matthew 25. And we as a nation are faltering, and we have allowed far too much sin and pride to enter into our culture. And we really ought to do something about it. That's all of our prerogative. We need to be a lot more serious about confronting sin and telling people when they're engaged in acts that are displeasing to God. And don't be cruel about it, but don't pretend that you're loving them by allowing them to continue in bad behavior. That's not good at all. So don't do that. And yeah, that'll be it for today. See ya.